Hi, I'm Andrea. Thanks for joining me for this 30-minute yoga practice. A few things that will be helpful to our practice today. I think this is one where it's pretty nice to have your chair. Also a set of blocks. Now if you don't have blocks, it's fine. You can find a couple of heavy, thick books and that will do the trick. We'll do something on our hands and knees today, so a folded blanket, something to pad your knee, I think would be a very nice thing to have in the mix. It can be your hand towel, a dish towel. Also, a bolster can be a nice tool to have. Don't worry if you don't have a bolster. Pull a cushion off your couch or find a sturdy pillow from your bed. And lastly, I'm standing on a yoga mat, but you don't need one for this practice. I'm also barefoot. If you feel more comfortable with shoes on, then leave your shoes on. The whole point is to start where we are. And let's start in Tadasana, so our first and bedrock pose. Your feet are hip distance. Have a little soft bend in your knees. Spin your palms away from one another. Now this is foundational. Like I said, it's our bedrock pose. So let's really take some extra time in our foundation. We're going to lean into foundation as a little bit of a theme to the movement of our practice. So if we start with our true foundation here of mountain pose and think ears over shoulders, over hips, over heels, with your chin parallel to the ground and your gaze at the horizon. The other element that is foundational that we find here is our breath. Let your breath come in, widen your ribs, feel full, and go out and connect you, ground you into the earth. If you're able to breathe just through your nose, that's ideal, but I mostly want you to breathe. So breathe any way that you can. One last little foundational moment here is that we turn the arrows of attention inward as opposed to how distracted we can be in our life. And we build almost a little cocoon here in our mountain of mindfulness and breath. I'm going to be quiet for 30 seconds and we will stand into our foundation together. You might even close your eyes. 30 seconds starting now. If you're not there already, move your mountain towards the front edge of your mat, or whatever it is that you're using to be the front edge of your mat today. Take your chair and turn it so that you might be able to use the seat if that was of interest, and especially if you don't happen to have blocks. If you do have blocks or you found those thick books that you're happy with, place them on either side of your mat so they're not directly underfoot. That's a bit of foundational mindfulness as well. Facing your chair with your feet hip distance, inhale your arms out to the side, thumbs to the sky, a V shape, and then exhale, hinge at your hips, and bring your hands to the tops of your thighs. Inhale your heart forward and simply exhale, hinge at your hips. Inhale, arms out and up, thumbs to the sky, and then float your arms alongside your body. Again, inhale, arms out and up, V shape. Exhale, hinge at your hips and hands to your thighs. Inhale your heart forward. This time, as you exhale, take your hands either to the seat of your chair or bring your hands onto your blocks and step your left foot back into a lunge. This too is a foundation, and we will build this foundation from the ground up. Swing your right hip back and your left hip forward. Now when I say swing, that's kind of a strong word because it's actually a more subtle drawing back of your right hip and forward of your left hip. Feel your right heel stamp into your mat so that your hamstring, which is the muscle on the back of your thigh, feels engaged. And then let your left thigh bone press into that back hamstring So it feels almost like you've constructed a leg for a plank pose. We keep our head above our hips all the time and a long spine like the foundation that we found in our mountain pose, even though we happen to be in a lunge at the moment. Step your left foot forward, hip distance from your right. Take your hands to your thighs. Inhale your heart forward. Exhale, hinge at your hips. Inhale, arms out and up, thumbs to the sky, a V shape, and then float your arms alongside you, palms face out. Inhale, arms out and up, a V shape. Exhale, hinge at your hips and take your hands to your thighs. Inhale, extend your heart forward. As you exhale, hands come to the seat of your chair or onto your blocks. Your right foot does the stepping back this time, and we'll pause, creating the foundation of our lunge. So we got a nice deep bend in our left knee. You're steering that left hip back a bit and your right hip forward. It's subtle, but it's an ongoing action. And you feel the majesty of your mountain through your spine. Crown of your head is tall. Breath is steady. All the stuff that we found in our mountain pose, our breath work, our inward turn, they've come along for the ride in our lunge. Now step slowly. Your right foot hip distance from your left. Hands to your thighs. Inhale. Exhale, hinge at your hips. Inhale, rise and reach, thumbs to the sky, a V shape, and then float your arms along your side. We're going to do the same thing, but we'll move at a slightly faster pace. Inhale, arms out and up, thumbs to the sky, V shape. Exhale, hinge at your hips and hands to your thighs. Inhale your heart forward. As you exhale, hands to your chair or to your blocks, and your left foot steps back into your lunge. Pause in your lunge just for one beat, and then left foot hip distance from right foot, hands to your thighs. Inhale your heart. Exhale, hinge at your hips. Inhale, arms out and up, thumbs to the sky, a V shape, and then float your arms along your sides. Inhale, arms out and up, thumbs to the sky. Exhale, hinge at your hips and hands onto your thighs. Inhale your heart forward. As you exhale, hands to the seat of your chair or onto your blocks, and your right foot does the stepping back this time. A beat where you feel your left heel stamp down and convince that left hip back. Then right foot steps hip distance from left, hands to thighs. Inhale. Exhale, hinge at your hips. Inhale, arms out to the side, V shape overhead. Float your arms along your sides. Great. Adding on. Inhale, thumbs to the sky. Exhale, hinge at your hips and hands onto your thighs. Inhale your heart forward. The exhale takes our hands to the seat of our chair or onto our blocks. Step your left foot back. Pause in your lunge for a moment. So right foot is forward. This time, turn your left foot, your back foot on its side, and heel toe your right foot just a couple of inches over to the left. Now, I would recommend taking your right forearm across your thigh and then left thumb to the sky, and you'll hug that right hip underneath you as you do. You can always use your block if you want to, but remember, our deal is that you're going to keep your head higher than your hips. And it's actually handy to have that block nearby, because in a moment we're going to add on even more to this little sequence. I don't mean to give away any surprises, but this is our foundation here. Hugging that right hip underneath, stamping into your right heel. 3 moments, exactly as we are. Be cautious with our dismount. So unwind and spin on your back toes, either hands onto your blocks or hands onto the seat of your chair. So first we come back to our foundational lunge. And then when we feel like we've stuck our landing, left foot hip distance from right. Just make sure your blocks are not too much underfoot. Hands to your thighs. Inhale your heart forward. Exhale, hinge at your hips, and then inhale, rise. Thumbs to the sky, V shape. Pause in your mountain, palms face out. Inhale, arms out and up, thumbs to the sky. Exhale, hinge at your hips and hands to your thighs. Inhale your heart forward. The exhale brings your hands to your chair or to your blocks. Your right foot steps back. And now we're in our lunge foundation. Spin your right foot, your back foot flat. Heel toe your left foot just a little bit over to the left. And then take your left forearm across your thigh and your right arm up to the sky. Karate chop quite a bit so we're not collapsed into that left shoulder. And see if you can hug your left hip underneath you as we're here. Stay for a few moments. Like I said on the first side, if you like to use your hand on the block, it's fine. I just want you to keep your head high. 3 moments here. Remember, our dismount is super mindful. So spin on your back toes as you release your hands to your blocks or to the seat of your chair, and stick the landing in our foundation of lunge first, so there's no torque on our back knee. Right foot hip distance from your left, hands to your thighs, inhale, and then exhale, hinge at your hips. Inhale, rise and reach, thumbs to the sky, V shape overhead, and then stand and pause it here in your mountain, our true foundation. Come back to the foundation of breath. The foundation of inward versus distractedly outward turn. And then inhale, arms out to the side, thumbs to the sky, a V shape. Exhale, hinge at your hips, hands come to your thighs. Inhale your heart forward, hands to the seat of your chair or possibly onto your blocks. We step back to our foundational lunge. It's your left foot that does the stepping back. Here we are in our lunge. Mindfully, back foot on its side. Heel toe your right foot a little bit over to the left, and then bring your right forearm across your thigh and your left arm to the sky, thumb to the sky. Hug that right hip underneath you. It becomes tempting to do 2 things. One is to collapse into that shoulder. I'd prefer that we not. So really karate chop with that right forearm. The other is that we want to swing and hug that right hip underneath us as opposed to stick our butt out to the right. Now from here, either hand onto the base of your chair or hand onto your block. Very slow motion, begin to straighten your front leg. And it's likely that it's not going to straighten all the way. I want you to keep that right hip hugging underneath. Keep your left thumb to the sky. Press now into your right big toe mound, so you can do that with your hand on your chair, and you're allowed to move your chair closer if that's helpful. 3 moments here. Now first, bend your front knee. Spin onto your back toes and take your hands onto your blocks or onto the base of your chair. Now that we've stuck the landing in our lunge, we will step left foot hip distance from right, and then hands to thighs. Inhale. Exhale, hinge at your hips. Inhale, rise, reach, thumbs to the sky, a V shape. And then palms out as we stand in our true foundation of mountain pose. Second side, inhale, arms out and up. Exhale, hinge at your hips and hands to your thighs. Inhale, extend your heart forward, and then your exhale brings your hands to the seat of your chair or onto your blocks, and your right foot does the stepping back into our foundational lunge. Back foot flat and left foot steps a little bit over to the right. Left forearm across your thigh, right thumb to the sky. Let's pause long enough to find the spaciousness of our karate chop in that left arm. You are hugging your left hip underneath you. And we breathe here just a moment or 2. Maybe you've already brought your left hand onto your block, or you have it on the seat of your chair. But slow motion, you will find either left hand on the seat of your chair or left hand on your tall block, and press into your left big toe mound to move that front leg towards straight. Nobody needs to straighten the front leg if it doesn't feel right. Hug your left hip underneath you, keep your head higher than your hips. And breathe into all the sticky bits that we find here. Notice if there are habits like crowding your shoulders into your ears that you can start to be aware of, and then let that no longer be a part of our foundation. Our exit is mindful. We first bend the front knee, spin on your back toes, and take your right hand onto your block or both hands onto the seat of your chair. Once we've stuck the landing in the foundation of our lunge, right foot hip distance from left foot, hands onto your thighs, inhale. Exhale, hinge at your hips. Inhale, rise and reach, thumbs to the sky, and then stand into your mountain. We'll make our way to the floor, and we can use these props as an assist. Inhale, arms out and up. Exhale, hinge at your hips and hands to your thighs. Inhale, extend your heart forward, and then hands to your chair, maybe onto your tall blocks, mindfully one knee and then the other, onto the ground. We'll get rid of one set of props, so blocks off to the side and your chair off to the side. And then let's introduce the potential of some padding underneath our knees, because we're going to come onto hands and knees now. Now, I'll turn this way. I'm going to kind of move around so that you can see me best. You can just keep looking at me and you won't have to relocate quite so much, but I want to make sure that you can see what I'm up to. So, on hands and knees with our knees maybe on our padding. And we want to align our shoulders over our wrists, so we're not too far out in front. We're not too close to us. So right underneath. And then I like to keep my toes curled under. I'll turn this way so you can see me a bit better. Right hand, right knee, and right foot all on a middle line, and then left foot on its side. So you could almost imagine that this looks a little bit like that side angle pose that we did. Take your left hand onto your hip. Now feel that the inner part of your right arm is spinning out in front of you so we don't have that collapse. Pause for a moment here and just see how you're doing. Now hugging your right hip underneath you becomes an anchor for balance here, because it's actually a little tricky to balance even just like this, I think. Maybe left arm to the sky, thumb to the sky. Be aware that we have the foundation of our mountain pose even here, even now. And like I said, kind of a little dusting of that side angle. So there is a shared foundation. You might experiment with lifting your left leg. If you do that, the balance gets a little bit more challenging. It's kind of more difficult to find your mountain. Maybe looking down is helpful, whether you've lifted the leg or not. Do your best. I think one giant part of foundation is that we have to be able to have a good laugh if we tumble and fall and climb back up again. I believe that to be quite foundational. 2 moments. Now stamp that left foot down. Take your left hand onto your hip. Slow motion, turn and bring your left knee to your mat. Come to hands and knees. And between sides, come up to kneeling and twirl your wrists. Maybe make fists and open your hands. It's a bit of time, weight bearing on our wrists. I will relocate so that you can see me. You don't have to change things up unless somehow you feel like that's fun. And then hands and knees. And we're setting it up so that our shoulders are over our wrists. We're not way out in front. We're not too far behind. And then you can just kind of think of a straight line from your left hand to your left knee and your left toes. And then spin your right foot flat. Once you've got that, right hand on your hip. Left hip is hugging underneath you, much like a conversation that we had in our side angle pose. And we want to make sure that we're not dropped and collapsed into that left shoulder. So let's pause here in the foundation of this side plank variation that we're doing. Let's see if we can't find mountain pose in our torso. So there's length out the crown of your head, even though I know this doesn't look like mountain pose. If you're feeling relatively solid with your left hip hugging underneath you as a bit of an anchor, then you can take your right arm to the sky, thumb to the sky. You breathing? Sometimes these balancing poses, we try to hold our breath, hoping that's going to help. I can tell you from experience, it is not. Only if it makes sense might you add lifting your right leg, and then the balance gets a little bit more wobbly. See what I mean? Probably a good time to find that foundation of a sense of humor. It would be particularly funny if I completely fell the way that I almost did, and might still. Last couple moments. Now first, stamp your right foot down. Take your right hand onto your hip. Lower your right hand onto your mat and your right knee onto your mat. We're on hands and knees, and we'll release our wrists one more time. But let's do it this way. So I'll face you even more. Take the backs of your hands and just press them together. And then fists and open a few times. It could be that you sit on what was padding your knees, or you could sit on a bolster for this next posture, or you could sit on one of your books or your blocks if you have them. Extend your legs out in front of you, and then bend your right knee and place that right foot either into the inseam of your left shin or up into your left thigh. I like to oftentimes take one of my books or blocks and place that underneath my right thigh. So if you've got knee stuff, or it just feels a little bit like it wouldn't mind some support, then definitely give yourself some support there. Curl your left toes back and find our mountain pose from the waist up. Pause a few moments just upright here in this pose. Notice where your foundation is. It was in our feet when we were standing, and our foundation now is in our sit bones. Base of the spine, closer to the ground now. We hinge at our hip to go into a forward fold. We're not going to round. So you might take your block or blocks tall, out in front of you a little bit. Place your hands on top. Think back to when we were doing our lunge and we found that extraordinary length in our spine, and bring that with you as you wander a little bit forward, but you're not rounding your face towards your leg. And we use this as a shape to meditate. And it looks a little bit like a figure four or a tree pose. I like to think of it as a figure four, and like I am embodying something for meditation. Maybe close your eyes. Let me give you some silence to stretch out in. A full minute here. Just walk yourself carefully back in with your blocks or books, or maybe you were on your fingertips. Let's release this thoughtfully. So take your right hand onto your right thigh and stamp that right foot onto the ground. That way we know our knee is happy. And then extend your right leg. We'll set it up on our second side. So left foot maybe into the inseam of your shin or into the inseam of your right thigh. And if that block of support underneath your left thigh sounds like a good idea, do that. Curl your right toes back. Think of when we were standing in our mountain pose. And before we take anything into a forward fold, let's just sit tall here and feel our new sense of foundation that's in our sit bones, not in our feet. Let that climb up your spine. So oftentimes we do sit during the day. Not necessarily in the figure 4 shape, but if we can use this idea of, oh, my foundation is in my sit bones and I grow tall from there, it's very helpful to avoid the slump that just comes from habit and neglect. So keep this nice, beautiful, spacious length. You can start to hinge at your hip, not round, but hinge, and walk a little bit forward. Think of finding something that looks a little bit like our lunge in your spine. And then I remind you that I said this is like a 4, and we use it for embodying our full minute of meditation. Last couple moments here. And then walk yourself in. Remember how we exited carefully on the first side? Left hand on your left thigh. Place your left foot on the ground. Extend your left leg and just give yourself a little waggle. Then make your way lying onto your back. We'll take a supine twist, so a lying down twist. Once you're lying down, scoot your hips to the right and let your knees spill to the left. You can just let them spill or cross your right knee on top if that feels good. And then come through center and stamp your feet so you can scoot your hips to the left and let your knees drop to the right. If crossing your left knee on top feels like a good idea to you, you can do that. And then come down the middle. Walk your feet as wide as your mat and let your knees fall in on each other. Shimmy your shoulder blades underneath you. Lift your hips just one gentle inch and lower your hips so there's space in your low back. Either stay like this or extend your legs one at a time straight out in front of you for our Shavasana final meditation, which I think is also a major foundation. Let yourself let go. You can stay here in your mountain pose on the floor for as long as you'd like. If you're ready, move your fingers and toes, gather your knees into your chest, roll gently to either side, and come up to a comfortable way to sit. And once you're seated, can you feel the foundation of sit bones in the ground in such a way that when you sit in front of your computer You find it there too? I'm Andrea. Thank you so much for practicing with me today.